We're going to talk a little bit about what MDG is doing to get buyers to AAPEX, and then once they're there, what you can do to get those buyers to your booth. So that will include setting goals and objectives for exhibiting at AAPEX, understanding your audience and the AAPEX audience and what they're looking for, ways to drive booth traffic, and then what to do after the show. All right, so first, getting buyers to AAPEX, which is our job. And just a brief overview of some of the things that we are planning to do and then are already underway. So the first thing we did was redesign the AAPEX website. And some of you may have noticed that if you have visited it. We looked at it from a user experience standpoint to see what people were going to and what makes sense to have elevated, and then also optimized it for SEO. So people looking for information about the aftermarket could find AAPEX more easily. We do some outbound promotion emails on a regular basis to our alumni database. We send attendee newsletters, and many of you should be on our exhibitor newsletter list, so you may have seen those. There's an attendee version, and there's one for registered attendees that tells them about things going on at the show, and there's a version for people who haven't registered to entice them to do so. And actually, I think one went out this morning. We have organic social media as well as paid social media, so we are trying to reach new audiences through those channels. Paid digital marketing, which are typically in the form of banner ads, and then direct mail and partnerships with print media. So if you subscribe to the Babcock's publications, for example, you'll see some of our print ads there as well as advertorials. All right, so booth goals and objectives. Reserving your booth is an awesome first step, but actually the most important step is setting a goal for why you're at AAPEX and what you hope to accomplish. So first, let's define goal. A goal is your desired primary outcome. In other words, it might answer the question, what does success look like? All right, so first thing you want to do is define your SMART goals, and SMART is an acronym that helps keep in mind how to define those goals in a meaningful way. So first you want to make them specific. You want to, if your goal is X product sales, you want to define the sales for a specific product or multiple products. You want to make them measurable. So are you looking to sell a specific quantity of those products, or are you looking to hit a revenue target? You want them to be achievable. So how does it compare to previous shows that you've exhibited at, or specifically if you are a previous AAPEX exhibitor, how does it compare to your performance last year and the year before? Relevant, how does it align with the goals that you have as a company and perhaps for your position at that company? All right, so we're going to use an example here to help kind of drive this home. So specific, you want to use action words. You're going to state what you're going to do at AAPEX. So for example, I will increase sales as a result of exhibiting at AAPEX 2019. Great, so let's make it measurable. Let's layer in a quantity. I will drive $130,000 in sales. Great. Achievable. Well, we feel like this is realistic because it represents a 3% increase from the revenue I brought in from previous shows. So keeping that in mind, for example, if you had set that at $1 million, that would probably not be achievable unless your company has really exploded in the last year. So make sure it's something that is attainable. Relevant. It supports my overall goal of bringing in $1.5 million in revenue in 2019. And then time-bound. I will include sales made during AAPEX and 4 weeks after. And we'll talk a little bit more later in the presentation about why you might want to have a window that extends beyond exhibiting at AAPEX. All right, and then you want to start designing your booth to support your SMART goals. I know a lot of you use a similar booth design from year to year, but if you have an opportunity to redesign your booth, you want to keep in mind what you're looking for it to do. So you might see here that there's some that are more brand awareness. You'll see a lot of logos. You'll see not as many products. There's some that are there to support meetings. Those will have more seated spaces, places to have conversations, private areas. And there are some that are there to bring in organic traffic, and they might have a more open layout with specific products displayed. All right, so some tips on goal setting. The first is prioritize. Which objectives are most important? Are some longer term or some shorter term? The second is cut down your goals. 3 to 5 is really good. If you have something like 20, that's really hard to get alignment on from everyone involved with the exhibit and with your company. And measuring them gets to be really onerous. So having a few that everyone knows, understands, and are clear is far better than having a large quantity. And then also communicate. Make sure that everyone involved in your booth knows what the goals are. So the more people who know and embrace the goals, the better opportunity you're going to have to achieve them. And then define the objectives. We're going to talk about that more in the next section, but that's basically what you're going to do to achieve the goals that you have. And finally, set a time to evaluate. Put a meeting on the calendar now to evaluate them after this show. And people may look at you like you're crazy for setting up a meeting now for mid-November, but it's important that everybody involved knows that you are serious about these goals and that you're going to hold everyone accountable to them. All right, so objectives. To define objectives, they are measurable steps you take to achieve your goals. So how are you going to know that you're set up for success? The first is, how many prospects are you going to need to visit your booth to achieve your goal? So you want to take a look at last year at AAPEX, about how many people came to your booth and what percentage of those resulted in a sale for you or an extended contact. If you know that, for example, you had 100 people visit your booth and only 10 made a purchase, then you know based on your goals that 10% of people are going to make a purchase, so you need to drive that many more people to your booth. You want to know, how are you going to get known prospects to your booth? These are people that you already have a relationship with. You might have set up meetings with them. You might already have a relationship with them, which is great because that means that you have their contact information. So you can shoot them an email, let them know what your booth number is, what you're planning on exhibiting, if there's any new products you want them to come see, let them know that you're excited to see them. Send them a direct mail, give them something physical that they can bring to the show that has your number on it that they can hang on to. Direct messages via social media. LinkedIn is especially great for this. Send them a message. Everyone checks those, so it's a really great way to have a more personal connection. And finally, pick up the phone and call them, have a conversation, get them excited about seeing you, set up a meeting if you can. And then organic prospects. These are folks who you don't know, who are new customers potentially. They're a little bit harder to reach, but you can do it via social media, and make sure that you have your booth number, because you all should have your booth number by now, in all of your communications. Have it in your email signature, have it on your website, have it any social media posts you do, and your social media profile. Make it a number that people cannot forget. And then in-booth attractions are another way to drive people to your booth who might not already be planning on visiting, and we'll talk more about that a little bit later too. Great. So next we're going to talk about understanding the audience. Who is going to be at AAPEX and what are they looking for? Right, so earlier this year, AAPEX did some research to better understand who comes to AAPEX and also the industry as a whole. So here you can see the results across each of our target buyer categories, as well as the cumulative totals. So overall, the top 3 reasons they're attending AAPEX are to see new and emerging technology, meet with suppliers, and connections and networking. Now you may notice and say, hey, Maureen, purchasing supplies is pretty low on that list. That doesn't mean that they are not purchasing supplies while they're there. It means that the connections they're making with people are more important to them than a transaction. So how do you play into that? How do you make sure that you're getting to that psychological need for them to feel like they're connected to you and your company so that you can get them to purchase supplies? So first, you want to create reasons for people to visit your booth. New products and services to demonstrate is a wonderful thing. And if you are able to hold off on a product launch until the show, people want to feel like they are in the inside track when they're there. They want to feel like they're hearing about new products and they're hearing about them first before their competition. And if you can establish that relationship with them, that you're giving them inside knowledge, that will go a long way. I think one thing to keep in mind in general for booth traffic is that if you build it, they will come does not apply here. It is not a bake sale. It's not a lemonade stand. It's an exhibit, and you want to give people a reason to go there. There's 2,500 booths, probably more. I think Bill Jr. will correct me. And there are a lot of reasons for them to go to the one next door to you. So how do you get them to come to yours and stay? Special pricing or deals available only at AAPEX. This is also a great thing to communicate to your existing customers. A reason for them to come visit you and make their purchases there is that they're not going to get this pricing any other time of year. The presence of a celebrity in your booth. We see a lot of people who are relevant to the industry. So there's a lot of race car drivers that are there. I think last year there was Adam Carolla, who was a little bit different. He has, I think, a podcast, but he's also known for his general comedy career. So think about who your audience is, specifically who you're not seeing at your booth, who you want to see, and who they might care about. Maybe they're really into fishing, and you bring some big fly fishermen there who they're excited to meet. That gets them there. That gets them waiting around, and that gives you an opportunity to have a conversation with them. You want the presence of people they know in the booth. So if there's a salesperson or a customer service person who they have a lot of contact with, have that person there so there's a friendly face that they recognize and they feel like, oh, I have a friend here at the show. I'm going to make sure to go visit them. You can also have a high-energy, entertaining activity at the booth. For those of you who were at the show last year, the one that comes to mind for me is the slot car races with the bikes that was almost right at the entrance. And you saw all those people lining up to do that, cheering on the people who were competing. It was really fun, and it gave you a reason to stop by there for a second and see what was going on. Granted, that is a very involved setup, but you could also do something simple. There's always, the game of cornhole or bags, depending on where you're from, or skee ball, something that gets people to stop and do something a little bit different. Games, contests, drawings, so you can always win, I think, like a Yeti tumbler, an iPad, and then giveaways, samples of food and or beverage, and we're going to talk about that right now. So if you have any of these things at the show, you want to use them as messaging points and incentives to draw attendees to your booth in your pre-AAPEX marketing. Like, hey, come to our booth. We're having a skee ball tournament. You can win a Yeti tumbler if you have the highest score. Also, we're launching a product. Probably reverse, actually, in that messaging. And then if you're doing something unique in your booth, we would encourage you to let us know about it. We love having new and exciting things to talk to attendees about, especially people who haven't registered yet. We want to make sure that they are finding out about all the reasons to come to the show, and hearing about something fun going on is always a great reason. And also free marketing for you. So it's in your best interest to let us know. All right, pop quiz, as promised. According to the Center for Exhibition Industry Research, which CEIR, what percentage of attendees come to a trade show with an agenda? Is it 10%, 25%, 50%, or 75%? Just yell out what you think it is. 25 over here. Any other thoughts? 75? Well, you are correct. It's 75%. And that agenda they have can be pretty detailed. So people come to Vegas, they get to their hotel knowing how they want to spend their time at the show. And we also hear this anecdotally when we talk to buyers and attendees, that they're here for meetings, they have them set up, and they're ready to go. So it's why your pre-show marketing is so crucial. You can't wait until the buyers are on site to get them to your booth. You need to get in front of them and give them a reason to come see you and get added to that list. So how do you cut through the noise? Our attendees start planning well before they're at the show. Noise level is going to be at its peak the 2 weeks leading up to the show. Everyone during that time is trying to get their booth number out there and get people to their booth. You have to be out ahead of that. So make sure that you're marketing 2 to 3 months out on a consistent basis, and that your meetings are getting set up 4 to 6 weeks out, and follow up. Make sure that you're following up with them a couple weeks before the show and then a few days before the show, confirming that you're excited to see them, making sure they're going to be there, letting them know about maybe some of the things that you're excited to show them. Really make them feel like you're their number one meeting at that show. And then take advantage of the free resources. Kelly mentioned the eBooth profile. There is so much information you can fill out on that, including videos, the press releases, your social accounts. Make sure that that is robust. As attendees are searching for exhibitors, they're going to be clicking on those profiles. And if there's one that just has a booth number and a physical address, that's far less compelling than one that has a lot of information that they can go through and get excited about. And then consider paid opportunities. There are more than, this is 2,000, I believe it's actually more than 2,500 booths. There are far fewer opportunities to have brand visibility off of the show floor. And I know Chris and Ryan are going to be talking more specifically about the sponsorship opportunities later in the major presentation. But keep in mind that we have some that can support your goals, and they are more than willing to work with you and customize a package that can make sure that it's hitting what you need if there isn't something that's already available that you're interested in. Also, having the right staff in the booth. I think if you've ever been in charge of a booth staff team, you may have learned the hard way that some people are cut out for it. Some people are very much not. So make sure that you have the right people there. And there might be times where it is out of your control and you are told who you have to bring there. But whenever you do have the opportunity to influence who's going to be there, here are some guidelines. No matter who you choose, first of all, make sure that they're a people person. If they're nervous in front of crowds, this is not the opportunity for them. There are over 50,000 buyers who come to AAPEX on the show floor. So some of the people you might want to consider who you may not have already considered, first is someone from your research and development team. They are going to be able to answer very specific questions about some of those new products. And it also makes buyers feel like they're getting inside information, which we've established is key. It also helps them make another personal relationship at your company. Like, it goes deeper than just a salesperson who's looking to convert them into a customer. It shows that you really want the customer to know your product and invest in it. So one thing that's also an added benefit to having that person there is that they're learning what buyers are looking for, and that can help as they develop more products for your company. Another one is customer service representatives. They've spent time in the trenches. They have dealt with customers with a spectrum of emotions, and they're able to handle that with empathy and finesse. So having that person there who can address any concerns and also knows how to talk to people is key. And then people who are good listeners, good communicators, approachable and professional, among other things. You want to make sure that even with salespeople, they can run the gamut, and you want to make sure that you have your people there who are engaging and who are people who you would want to go up and talk to in a large crowd. All right, so generating booth traffic. Make sure your booth staff is engaging and does not look bored. And I should caveat this by saying none of these were taken at AAPEX. These are all from other shows, so don't worry about that. But you'll notice in all of these, we have people with their heads buried in their phones. I don't think this is here, but I've seen people sleeping at booths. None of those are acceptable. When you want someone to be bringing people into your booth, you want them to be able to see the pupils of their eyes at the very minimum. So we know it's a long day and a long 3 days on the show floor. Of course, there are going to be times when someone needs to deal with something that is not the business of the booth. That's fine. Make sure they're doing it away from the booth. And then if you're in charge of scheduling your booth team, make sure that you're building in breaks for people. We're all human. We can only stand and be engaging for so long. So make sure that people have some time away to decompress and recharge and can come back refreshed. All right. So one of the other things you can do is advertise or sponsor. So we already talked about that 75% of people have their show planned by the time they get there. So how do you get in front of them? You can sponsor elements of the show. So you can do brand awareness, so signage, logo placements on site. Another thing you can do that we have are sponsorships, I believe, within our newsletter. So those go out, we send those out, and it's a banner ad you can put at the top of our newsletter that goes to our attendees and lets them know your booth number. There's also thought leadership, so you could sponsor an educational session, or you could present at something like Let's Tech, which are those 20-minute technology-focused TED Talks. I like to also caveat it by saying that they're not commercials for your product, but they're a great opportunity for you to have your name and your business's name associated with the forward-looking parts of the industry and being an expert on that area. And then any major announcements you have, there's our press center, and you can also schedule a press conference. I know Kelly's going to talk about those a little bit more in detail later, but those are great resources for you as well. And then on-site activation. So when you're posting about the show, use our hashtag. It's hashtag AAPEX19, or someone, I think at the last booth camp, asked me about pound AAPEX19. True story. I will not name names. And if you want to go a step further, you can tag our social channels on it. So at AAPEX Show, and it's likely that we would repost or retweet what you post. So it gives you a little bit more amplification there as well. All right, a few final tips. First of all, first impressions are everything. So if someone comes up to your booth and you look like you don't want to talk to them, they're looking for any reason to go to the next booth. So don't give it to them. I think, I've seen some booths that are great at it, and I've seen some that could use some work, where I think of a lemonade stand with 6-year-olds, and they've gotten me to come up to their lemonade stand more than this booth has drawn me in. So be the good lemonade stand. And a busy booth generates buzz, which I will not try to say 3 times fast. That, if you think about Times Square, there's a hot dog vendor with a really long line, and there's a hot dog vendor that no one is at. Which one are you going to go to? You're going to go to the one that probably won't give you food poisoning. So you're going to wonder why no one's at the empty hot dog cart, right? So be the busy hot dog cart as well. And if you can be interactive, engage people, give them a reason to spend more than 2 seconds grabbing a handful of candy from your booth. It gives you an opportunity to start a conversation, and more importantly, to start a relationship. Because as we know, people are not looking to be sold to. They're looking to have a relationship with your company. And be different, but be relevant. If you're giving away something that has no relevance to your company or product, people are going to come by, grab that bottle opener, grab that 3 Musketeers, and leave. I like to call them trick-or-treaters because they just come by and grab what they want. At the very least, if you have that candy bowl and that's what you can afford and that's fine, move it to the middle of your booth so they have to take a couple steps in to grab that. And then maybe they'll make eye contact with someone and you can start a conversation. It gives you a little bit more of a chance of success than just someone who can come by kind of like stealthily and grab candy and go. All right, so then you've had a great show, you're done, you've done move out, you're feeling great, you're tired, time for that beach vacation. Just kidding, it is not. All right, another pop quiz. How many exhibitors have a plan to follow up with leads after their show? Is it 10%, 25%, 50%, or 75%? The answer is 25%. There are a lot of crazy statistics about following up after shows and what companies do with their leads. I think we've heard from our Freeman team that during move out, they'll find full drawers of business cards that people just didn't take with them. And there are stats that suggest that 75 to 80% of exhibitors don't follow up after shows. It might vary wildly by industry, but there's something in this, which means that odds are 75% of our exhibitors may not be doing this, which means that your competition probably is not doing this, which leaves an opportunity for you to do it. You could be the one company that reaches out to an attendee. So first, some guidelines for how you might follow up. First, follow up within 2 days. 35 to 50% of sales go to the exhibitor who responds first. And 62% of leads are contacted within 5 days, which is not a very high number. Something you can also automate some of these things. So have those emails written and ready to go. CSI is going to talk a little, CompuSystems is going to talk about the lead retrieval system. This is a great way to get that list automatically. You'll get it, I think, in real time, and you can shoot off an email to them right after the show and be done for a minute. And then it's not always about that immediate sale. We find that nurturing leads yields 50% more sales at 33% lower costs. These are not new contacts you have to find. They found you. So what you need to do is keep the conversation going, keep talking to them. Only 16% of companies nurture leads until they become customers. So keep up that relationship. It's very easy to do something like put them on your newsletter. Have your salesperson reach out to them periodically, see what they're up to, see what their challenges are, see what their needs are, and how you can help them.